It was a quiet Sunday morning. The sun streamed softly through the nursery window, catching dust motes in its golden rays. The baby slept peacefully, swaddled in her favorite blanket, while the father sat nearby, sipping his coffee and scrolling through his phone. The calm hum of the house was suddenly punctuated by a low, insistent growl. The family dog, Max, usually calm and affectionate, stiffened and began pacing around the crib. His ears pricked, tail stiff, eyes darting between the baby and the door. He whimpered softly, refusing to let the father approach. "Max, it's okay, buddy," the dad said, trying to mask his unease, reaching out toward the crib. But Max barked sharply, bristling, and positioned himself directly in front of the baby's blanket, blocking access as if guarding a treasure. The father frowned, confused and frustrated. Why was Max acting like this? He had never been protective to this extreme before. Every instinct in Max's body screamed caution, a warning that the father couldn't yet understand. Minutes stretched, the tension growing quietly in the sunlit room. The baby stirred and Max's gaze followed her, unwavering, protective. Something in his expression, alert, intense, almost pleading, made the father's heart skip. His mind raced, but he didn't know what to do next. And then, just as he leaned closer, Max barked sharply, a single, urgent sound that froze him in place. That's when everything finally made sense. Before we continue, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? The sun had just begun to climb over the rooftops, spilling soft golden light through the nursery window. Dust motes danced lazily in the warm beams, catching every flicker of movement. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the trees, carrying the faint scent of morning dew and freshly cut grass into the quiet home. Inside, the baby lay swaddled in her favorite blanket, a soft pastel quilt that smelled faintly of lavender detergent. She cooed softly in her sleep, stretching tiny fingers and curling her toes. Her father, sitting nearby in a worn leather chair, cradled his morning coffee, the warmth seeping through the ceramic mug into his palms. He watched her carefully, a small, content smile tugging at his lips, feeling the comforting rhythm of a quiet Sunday morning. Max, their family dog, lay curled on the rug, his paws tucked under him. His fur shimmered in the sunlight, golden strands catching the light like threads of honey. He was still, relaxed, almost invisible in the calm. His ears twitched occasionally, following the soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant bird calls, the gentle creak of the wooden floor under the father's chair. It was ordinary, peaceful, safe. But then, Max's body shifted. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly. His ears pricked. A low, soft whine escaped his throat. His head tilted slightly, eyes locking onto the crib with an intensity that made the father glance up from his phone. "Max," he asked, his voice gentle. "What is it, buddy?" The dog rose to his feet, tail stiff but not aggressive. He patted around the crib, sniffing the edge of the blanket, then froze. His gaze darted to the corner of the room, then back to the baby. A subtle growl, almost a rumble in his chest, vibrated under his calm exterior. The father frowned. Max had always been protective, sure, but this was different. He stepped closer, coffee in hand. "It's okay, boy. She's fine," he murmured, bending slightly to smooth the blanket. But Max moved before he could reach the edge of the crib. He positioned himself squarely in front of the quilt, ears forward, eyes sharp. His posture was tense, deliberate, a barrier between the father and the baby. Max whimpered again, a soft, pleading sound. His tail twitched in agitation. He wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't angry. He was warning. The father froze. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something was off. Something invisible. He took a cautious step back, observing Max more closely now. The dog's gaze didn't waver. Every muscle in Max's body radiated alertness. The father's heart began to race, not from fear, but from a quiet, mounting curiosity. He had never seen Max act like this before. Not like this. A tiny creak echoed from the corner. Max's head snapped toward the sound. His ears flicked, his body coiled like a spring. And then he barked. Not a playful bark. Not a call for attention. A sharp, urgent warning that made the father freeze mid-step. The baby stirred. Her tiny fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. Max's eyes softened, but his stance did not relax. He nudged closer to her crib, positioning himself protectively between the father and the blanket. The father swallowed hard, confusion and awe mixing in his chest. Max, what are you seeing? The dog let out a low, almost human sigh. He sat back on his haunches, eyes never leaving the crib, tail swishing slowly, deliberately. The father leaned against the wall, still unsure, heart thumping in an unfamiliar rhythm. Something in Max's behavior, precise, intentional, protective, told him this was no ordinary morning. Something was coming, something that only Max could sense. And then, a soft rustle from beneath the blanket made Max's ears twitch sharply, his body rigid. He barked again, urgent, singular. A bark that demanded attention, that could not be ignored. The father froze. His mind raced. His instincts told him to lean closer, to investigate. But Max would not allow it. He stepped back. Slowly, carefully, watching Max like never before. And in that moment in the sunlit nursery, with the baby sleeping peacefully, the father realized something. Something invisible, something vital was about to be revealed. That's when everything finally made sense. The quiet of the morning seemed to stretch, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor. The baby slept on, soft breaths rising and falling in gentle rhythm. Her blanket, a faded pastel with tiny embroidered stars, lay slightly askew over her tiny body. Max's ears twitched again. His body shifted subtly, the muscles along his back tensing like coiled springs. He sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, tail held stiffly but low. Something was there. Something small. Something invisible to everyone but him. The father noticed it. Or rather, he noticed Max noticing it. "Max, what is it?" he murmured, his voice soft, almost hesitant. He set his coffee down, heart suddenly heavier, eyes narrowing as he tried to see what Max was sensing. The dog patted quietly around the crib, nose brushing the edge of the blanket, then stepping back as if confirming an invisible boundary. His growl was barely audible at first, just a low rumble vibrating in his chest. Then it grew slightly louder. Protective, insistent, unwavering. Max's eyes flicked to the corner of the room, then to the doorway, then back to the blanket. His head tilted, a subtle signal that something unusual had captured his attention. He began to circle the crib slowly, sniffing, pausing, listening. His ears flicked at every tiny sound, the creak of the floorboard, the rustle of the baby's blanket, the distant hum of the refrigerator. The father watched, uneasy. He tried to reason it out. "It's probably nothing," he whispered. Maybe he's just tired, right?" But the tension in Max's posture contradicted that thought. Every fiber of the dog's body screamed vigilance. Max stopped, head lowered, tail stiff, his gaze fixed on the blanket as though it were a fragile, precious thing. The baby stirred slightly, a soft whimper escaping her lips. Max shifted closer, nudging the blanket gently with his nose, repositioning it over her, a subtle, careful motion that spoke of instinctive guardianship. The father exhaled slowly, but his unease grew. Something in the air felt charged, subtle but undeniable. He bent slightly, trying to peek under the blanket, but Max moved first, placing himself directly in front of the crib. A low growl vibrated in his chest. His eyes locked onto the father with a mixture of trust and warning. He won't let me touch it," the father whispered, a hint of awe creeping into his voice. "Max, what are you seeing?" The dog tilted his head again, ears forward, tail slowly swishing. Then he barked, short, urgent, and low, the kind of bark reserved for situations that demand attention. Not alarm, not aggression, but a clear message: stop. Wait. Pay attention. The father froze. He felt the weight of the moment, the gravity of Max's instincts. He realized that this wasn't a game. It wasn't random behavior. Max had detected something he could not see. Something small, subtle, but potentially important. He leaned back against the wall, heart thudding in his chest, eyes never leaving the dog. Max shifted slightly, his gaze sweeping over the room, returning repeatedly to the baby and her blanket. The dog's body was a perfect balance of alertness and calm, protective without panic. Time seemed to stretch. The father felt each second, each breath, the subtle rise and fall of Max's chest, the tiny movements of the baby. The dog's growls became a soft rumble, punctuated by occasional low whines, a language of instinct the father was only beginning to understand. Finally, Max stopped pacing. He sat back on his haunches, eyes fixed on the blanket. A single slow breath, then another, and then a subtle movement beneath the edge of the quilt. A tiny, almost invisible rustle. Max's nose twitched, ears flicked, and he nudged the blanket slightly, repositioning it as if to shield the baby. The father's heart skipped. His mind raced. He could see that Max wasn't acting randomly. Every movement, every posture, every sound was deliberate. Okay, I see, he whispered, voice low, almost reverent. You're trying to tell me something. Max tilted his head, tail flicking slowly, as if acknowledging the understanding. He remained between the father and the crib, vigilant, protective, unwavering. For the first time, the father truly understood the depth of Max's perception. This wasn't just a pet. This wasn't just a dog. This was a guardian. A being capable of sensing dangers invisible to human eyes. And somewhere in that quiet sunlit nursery, the invisible tension hung like a thread, waiting for the moment when the reason for Max's vigilance would reveal itself. The sunlight in the nursery had grown warmer, streaming in soft golden beams that lit the crib and the pastel blanket in a comforting glow. The baby stirred again, tiny fingers curling around the edge of the quilt. Max remained between her and the father, ears pricked, body tense but not rigid, alert yet calm. The father took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. Max, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to. But Max cut him off, nudging the blanket gently, low growl vibrating in his chest. His eyes locked on the father, pleading, insistent. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't angry. He was warning. The father hesitated. For a moment, he considered stepping closer, thinking perhaps Max was overreacting. Come on, boy, he murmured softly, reaching toward the edge of the blanket. You're just being, protective. Max's tail stiffened, flicking sharply. He planted himself firmly, a silent blockade. He whined softly, low and urgent. The father froze mid-step. Max, relax. It's fine, he said, attempting to coax him with calm words. Really, she's fine. Max shifted slightly, circling the crib, sniffing the air carefully, his movements deliberate. He let out a single sharp bark, low-pitched, almost human in its urgency. The father frowned, conflicted. Was this just behavior? Just a dog being a dog? Or was there something he couldn't see? He knelt down slowly, hands hovering just above the blanket. Max's growl deepened, vibrating through the floor. He barked again, single, insistent, as if marking boundaries invisible to human eyes. The father froze. Sweat prickled at the back of his neck. He looked down at Max, eyes wide, trying to interpret what his companion was telling him. And yet, his mind raced with doubts. Maybe he's just nervous, he whispered to himself. Dogs get weird sometimes. Overprotective. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Max tilted his head, ears forward, tail stiff. He shifted slightly, nudging the blanket with precision, his gaze never leaving the father. The subtle movements, the quiet whine, the unwavering stare. Everything screamed caution. But the father, human eyes and human logic clouding perception, hesitated. He leaned closer, trying to peek under the blanket. Max immediately positioned himself between the father and the crib, low growl rumbling in his chest. He pressed his body lightly against the blanket, a gentle but firm shield. His eyes were unwavering, locked onto the father, warning, stop. Not yet. The father froze, the weight of the moment pressing down. He wanted to trust his own judgment. He wanted to dismiss it as just a dog's reaction. Yet every instinct in Max's body whispered something he could not ignore. Something unseen. A soft creak sounded from the corner of the room. Max's head snapped toward it. His ears flicked. The father leaned back instinctively, heart thudding, realizing he could no longer dismiss what he was seeing. Max's body language was precise, a language of instincts, of perception beyond human senses. Every muscle, every subtle twitch, every soft growl conveyed meaning. And the father was starting to understand that he might be misreading Max entirely. But hesitation gripped him. One part of him wanted to step forward, to intervene, to reach out and see what all the fuss was about. Another part told him to wait, to trust Max, to let the dog guide him. He exhaled slowly, trying to calm himself, but tension coiled in his chest like a spring. His fingers hovered just above the blanket again. Max stiffened. A low, urgent whine escaped him. The father's heart skipped a beat. He froze mid-breath. Max wasn't being dramatic. Max was communicating. The seconds stretched, long and quiet, sunlight streaming across the room. The baby stirring lightly, Max's body poised perfectly between protection and patience. Finally, the father whispered, almost reverently, "Okay, Max. I trust you. I see it now. I see you." Max's ears flicked, tail gave a slow, small wag, but he did not relax fully. He remained alert, waiting, guarding. The father leaned back against the wall, giving space, finally accepting that he might not understand fully yet. And that was okay. In that quiet, sunlit nursery, with dust motes drifting lazily in the golden beams, the father realized something profound. He had underestimated Max, misread him, ignored him, and now he would learn to watch, to wait, to trust. Max, the guardian, waited patiently, silent, vigilant, subtle cues guiding every moment. And the father, finally still, let himself observe, truly observe, what the dog had been sensing all along. The tension hung softly in the air, charged but calm. A quiet understanding had begun to form, one that would only grow stronger as the moments unfolded. And somewhere beneath the blanket, a tiny rustle hinted at the secret waiting to reveal itself. The morning sunlight had shifted slightly, streaming more horizontally through the nursery window, casting warm stripes across the crib and the floor. The air was still, almost holding its breath, carrying the faint scent of lavender from the baby's blanket. The baby cooed softly, stirring as tiny fingers twitched beneath the quilt. Max remained vigilant, standing sentinel beside the crib. Every muscle in his body was taut, every ear flicking, tail held low but rigid, eyes sharp and unwavering. The father stood a few feet away, heart thumping in his chest. He had begun to accept Max's warnings, but now a creeping unease filled him. Something invisible was pressing against the edges of his awareness. Something small, subtle, yet undeniable. Max sensed it, and that was enough to command attention. Max circled the crib again, slow, precise movements, nose low, sniffing, scanning every inch. His growl was low, almost imperceptible, vibrating under his chest. Each time the father leaned closer, Max positioned himself between him and the blanket, subtle yet insistent. Whine, growl, bark, each sound carefully measured, never aggressive, never frantic, but demanding. The father exhaled slowly. "Max, okay. I get it. I won't touch it," he whispered. But he couldn't stop glancing at the blanket, trying to see what Max was seeing. Max's eyes flicked to the doorway, ears alert. A distant hum from the refrigerator, the faint creak of the floor, even the baby's soft breathing, all registered in Max's focused attention. He whined again, low and deliberate, shifting his weight slightly, nudging the blanket to cover the baby more fully. His movements were careful, protective, guided by instinct alone. Minutes stretched. The father's unease deepened as Max repeated the behavior, circling, nudging, growling softly. Each repetition was subtle, deliberate, signaling, "Pay attention. Wait. Watch. Something is there." He bent down slightly, voice low. Buddy, it's okay. I'm watching. Max's ears flicked, tail swished, but he did not relax. He barked softly, then whimpered. A layered language of alertness. The dog's instincts were precise, calibrated to danger invisible to human senses. The father realized with mounting awe that Max's behavior wasn't random or exaggerated. Each movement, each bark, each nudge of the blanket was deliberate. A faint rustle sounded from beneath the quilt. Max's head snapped in that direction, tail stiffening, muscles taut. He barked again, short, urgent, insistent. The father froze, a lump forming in his throat. Max wasn't just protecting the baby. He was actively responding to something imperceptible to human eyes. Max, what are you seeing? He whispered, voice trembling slightly. The dog shifted slightly, nudging the blanket again, tail brushing against the crib rail. He circled once more, sniffing carefully, eyes never leaving the father or the blanket. The tension in the room was palpable, soft, yet undeniable. Every hair on the father's arm stood on end. He had learned to trust Max instinctively, but now that trust was tested by the invisible, by the unknown. Another rustle, smaller this time, beneath the edge of the blanket. Max's ears flicked sharply. He growled softly, a deliberate, measured sound. Then he barked, short, controlled, demanding attention. The father's pulse quickened. He stepped back instinctively, leaving space, acknowledging Max's authority over the moment. Max shifted to stand directly in front of the blanket, tail held low but stiff, eyes sharp. Whine. Sniff. Small nudge. Repeat. Each action precise, each cue deliberate. It was a language the father was only beginning to understand, a language of intuition, protection, and vigilance. The baby stirred, cooing softly, oblivious to the tension in the room. Max moved closer, gently brushing his nose along the edge of the quilt, almost like a soft shield. He sat back, alert, watching, waiting. The father leaned against the wall, breath shallow. His thoughts raced, yet he remained still, absorbing every movement, every subtle signal. Max's repeated behavior, circling, nudging, growling, barking, formed a rhythm, a silent warning, building an invisible tension that pressed against the walls of the nursery. He realized with quiet awe that this was no ordinary dog behavior. Max's instincts were guiding him, protecting, warning, preparing, and the father could do nothing but observe, trust, and wait. Time stretched. Moments passed in near silence, broken only by the baby's soft coos and Max's deliberate signals. The tension grew, not chaotic, not frightening, but charged with the promise of revelation. And beneath the blanket, something stirred again, subtle, almost imperceptible. Max's body tensed. His eyes locked onto the spot. He let out a single urgent bark, short, low, insistent. The father's chest tightened. He knew. He was about to understand why Max had been so protective all along. The room felt heavier now, though the sunlight still poured gently through the blinds. Every golden stripe seemed sharper, brighter, as if illuminating a secret that had been hiding in plain sight. Max sat rigid in front of the crib, tail stiff, ears forward, eyes sharp and unblinking. His body was a living signal, alert, protective, patient. The father's hands trembled slightly as he leaned against the wall, watching, waiting. Each soft whine and low growl from Max carried meaning he was only beginning to grasp. The repeated circling, the nudging of the blanket, the careful positioning of Max's body, all pointed to something hidden, something delicate, something vital. A tiny rustle beneath the edge of the quilt caught his eye. He leaned a little closer, carefully, respectfully, and that was when he saw it. A small, fragile object, partially tucked under the baby's blanket, quivered with her tiny movements. It was a piece of jewelry, a thin chain from a necklace that had slipped from the dresser hours earlier. Its metal glinted faintly in the morning light, catching the sun like a warning signal. Max's growl deepened. He nudged the blanket with his nose again, carefully keeping it positioned over the baby, shielding her from reaching the object. The dog's instincts had sensed a potential danger, not obvious to the human eye, but real all the same. A sharp metal link, small enough for the baby to grab and possibly swallow. The father's chest tightened, realization hitting him like a wave. His eyes moved between Max and the blanket, then down to the tiny object. "Oh my, Max," he whispered, voice trembling with awe and relief. You saved her." Max sat back slightly, still alert, tail brushing gently against the crib rail. His eyes softened, but he did not relax fully. He had done his job. He had protected. He had guided. The father leaned forward slowly, carefully, and removed the tiny chain, holding it in his hand as he studied Max. The dog's gaze followed every movement, calm but vigilant, every muscle relaxed just enough to signal trust without letting his guard down completely. "You saw it all along," the father murmured, voice low and reverent. "You knew she might reach it. You knew what could happen." Max tilted his head slightly, almost acknowledging the words. A soft whine, gentle and almost tender, escaped him. His eyes held a quiet understanding, no pride, no need for praise, just the knowledge that he had done what he was born to do. Protect, guard, watch, love. The father exhaled, relief flooding him, shaking off the tension that had gripped him for what felt like hours. His hands brushed against Max's soft fur as he leaned down, pressing a gentle hand against the dog's head. "Thank you, buddy," he whispered, voice thick. "Thank you for keeping her safe." The baby stirred, her tiny coos soft and melodic. Max's body relaxed just slightly, nudging closer to the crib, keeping a careful watch. The father sat back on the chair, holding the chain in one hand, while the other rested on Max's back. They both watched the baby together, a quiet harmony of trust, instinct, and love settling over the room. Sunlight fell across the three of them, the father, the baby, and Max, painting the moment in warmth. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a revelation. The father realized the depth of Max's perception, his intuition, his unwavering dedication. Max hadn't just been guarding a blanket. He had been guarding life itself. Tears pricked the father's eyes as he whispered, "I should have trusted you sooner. I see it now. I see you, Max. I really see you." Max leaned forward slightly, pressing his warm nose against the father's hand, as if acknowledging the newfound understanding. The tension in the room softened, replaced by a quiet, profound relief. The baby yawned, her tiny hands stretching under the blanket, oblivious to the invisible danger that had passed. Max remained close, watching, vigilant yet calm, a living guardian who had fulfilled his duty with quiet precision. For the father, the moment was transformative. He had witnessed the depth of a bond that transcended words, instincts that spoke louder than logic, and a love that protected without hesitation. The revelation wasn't just about the object beneath the blanket. It was about trust, intuition, and the quiet, profound connection between human and dog. And as sunlight streamed across the nursery, the father felt something he hadn't felt before. Complete, unshakable gratitude. Gratitude for Max, for his instincts, for the silent, watchful heart that had kept his daughter safe when he almost missed the danger entirely. Max let out a soft sigh, tail swishing gently, eyes still alert but calmer now. The threat had passed. The secret had been revealed. And in that quiet, sunlit room, the father realized one undeniable truth. Max wasn't just a pet. He was family, protector, guardian, friend. And the bond between them had just grown stronger. A silent, unbreakable promise of care, vigilance, and love. The moment the tiny chain was removed, a subtle shift filled the nursery. Sunlight, warm and soft, spilled across the room, brushing over the baby, the father, and Max. Yet the tension lingered, quieter now but present. Max remained at the edge of the crib, ears pricked, body alert, tail low but stiff. He had completed his task, but the vigilance in his posture told the father that this was more than just instinct, it was devotion. The father knelt slowly beside the crib, his hands trembling slightly. He looked at the baby, who was now reaching for the blanket again, tiny fingers brushing its folds. "It's okay, sweet girl," he whispered, voice soft and steady. "Nothing can hurt you." Max shifted, nudging the blanket gently with his nose to cover the baby fully, forming a protective barrier. His eyes met the father's, a silent communication passing between them. Trust, awareness, understanding. For a moment, the father simply watched, absorbing the full weight of what had just occurred. The baby's breath was steady, her soft coos filling the room. Max's tail thumped lightly against the floor in measured rhythmic beats, a gentle heartbeat to match the nursery's calm. Then the father reached out, hands cupping Max's face gently. "You saved her," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I can't even. I don't know what I would have done without you." Max leaned into the touch, ears flicking, eyes softening. He let out a low, almost human sigh, the kind of sound that carried relief and quiet pride. He hadn't just prevented potential harm. He had rescued the father from his own misjudgment, from underestimating the instincts of the one who loved unconditionally. The father's hands brushed the dog's fur, running down his back slowly, as if grounding himself in the reality of the moment. "You didn't just see the danger," he whispered. "You acted before I even knew it existed." Max nudged the father's hand gently with his nose, a small, deliberate gesture. It was a reminder, gentle, unspoken, that he had been there all along, watching, protecting, waiting. The baby's tiny giggle punctuated the moment, her soft, innocent voice echoing in the quiet room. Max's eyes flicked toward her, tail giving a soft wag. The father pulled a chair closer and sat, cradling the baby in one arm while Max settled beside him, body curled protectively around the crib. The father's chest rose and fell slowly, a deep exhale of relief. He looked down at Max. "You're incredible, buddy. I don't think I've ever appreciated you enough." Max leaned his head against the father's knee, eyes soft but alert. Every subtle twitch, every low whine, every gentle nudge had led to this moment of rescue. The father felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, relief, awe mingling in his chest. He shifted the baby slightly, adjusting the blanket, and Max nudged it back into place with his nose, a gentle, instinctive motion. The father realized fully that this wasn't just about protecting the baby. It was about guidance, about partnership, about a silent dialogue of trust between human and dog. Minutes passed. The baby cooed and yawned. Max remained watchful, and the father's eyes glistened with unshed tears. The danger had passed, but the emotional resonance lingered. He ran a hand over Max's back again, feeling the steady, warm pulse of his companion's body, a rhythm that mirrored the beating of his own heart. "You're my hero," the father whispered, voice low. "Not just for her. For all of us." Max tilted his head slightly, soft whine escaping him, as if acknowledging the praise without needing it. His eyes returned to the baby, protective and loving, unwavering in their devotion. The father leaned back in the chair, holding the baby close, letting the warmth of the moment wash over him. Max remained at his side, alert but calm, the quiet guardian who had turned tension into safety, fear into relief, instinct into an act of profound love. In that quiet nursery, sunlight spilling over the three of them, a bond had been reinforced. The father realized that rescue wasn't always dramatic or loud. Sometimes it was quiet, deliberate, patient. Sometimes it came in the form of a nudge, a subtle growl, a watchful gaze. Max had done more than protect. He had taught, guided, and reminded them of the fragile, precious nature of life. And in the warmth of that Sunday morning, the father felt a profound gratitude, for Max, for the baby, for the quiet, steady love that had kept them safe. And in that soft, golden light, he whispered once more, "I see you, Max. I really see you now." Max leaned his head against the father's hand, tail swishing softly, the gentle hum of a heart at ease. The danger was gone, the rescue complete, and the bond stronger than ever. The afternoon sun had shifted, casting a softer, warmer glow across the nursery. The air smelled faintly of the baby's blanket, lavender and fresh cotton, mingling with the subtle scent of Max's fur. The tension that had filled the morning was gone now, replaced by a quiet, almost meditative calm. The father sat in the worn leather chair, the baby in his arms, Max lying beside the crib, tail swishing lazily. He exhaled slowly, running a hand over Max's head. "You've been amazing, buddy. he murmured. All morning, all along. Max tilted his head, soft eyes watching the baby, ears flicking occasionally. His posture was relaxed now, but still vigilant enough to remind the father that protection was never passive. Every movement had been deliberate. Every bark, every nudge, every low whine had carried meaning, and now the father understood. The baby cooed and stretched in his arms, tiny fingers brushing against his chest. She yawned, eyes half closed, completely unaware of the invisible danger that had hovered so closely before. The father smiled softly, pressing his cheek to hers. You're safe, he whispered. All of you are safe. Max moved closer, circling the crib once more, then lying down with his nose resting gently on the edge. He was content, calm, but the father noticed the subtle hum of readiness in his posture, a guardian still alert, still connected, still aware. For the father, the healing process was not just about physical safety. It was about understanding, about trust, about the unspoken bond that had deepened in the quiet hours of the morning. He had misread Max. He had hesitated. But now he could see clearly the depth of instinct, the precision of love, the quiet, patient guidance that had kept his daughter safe. He shifted the baby slightly, tucking the blanket carefully around her. Max nudged it back into place gently, a small, deliberate action, almost ritualistic. The father smiled, a sense of relief spreading through him. You're teaching me, Max, he whispered. Teaching me how to watch, how to trust, how to care. The room remained quiet, filled only with the soft coos of the baby and the rhythmic breathing of Max. Each sound, each movement, seemed to weave a tapestry of healing. Tension dissolving, fear replaced with trust, hesitation replaced with understanding. The father leaned back in the chair, holding the baby close, feeling the steady warmth of life against him. Max lay at his feet, eyes soft, tail moving slowly, content but still vigilant. The father realized that this was the heart of the healing process. Presence, observation, patience, gratitude. Minutes passed. The father watched the interplay between Max and the baby. Each nudge, each gentle lick, each protective glance reinforced a silent promise. Max had acted not out of fear or aggression, but out of love and instinct. And now the father felt that same love and trust blooming in his own heart. He spoke softly, almost to himself. We're learning from you, Max. You've taught us patience, awareness, courage. Quiet courage. Max responded with a soft whine, almost like acknowledgement, then rested his head gently against the father's shoe. The baby stirred again, eyes blinking open, tiny smile spreading across her face. The father smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. The sun slanted lower now, casting long warm rays across the nursery. Light danced across Max's fur, highlighting the golden strands, shimmering like threads of sunlight. The father felt a profound sense of peace. The emotional tension, the subtle fear, the unease of the morning. All of it had dissolved into trust, understanding, and quiet gratitude. He looked at Max and then at the baby and realized the depth of connection that had formed. Not through words, not through training, not through simple routine, but through instinct, vigilance, and love. Max had guided them through the unseen dangers, and now they were healing together. The father shifted slightly, adjusting the baby in his arms, and Max nudged closer to the crib, settling his head on the soft rug, alert but serene. The father took a deep breath, exhaling fully for the first time all morning. In that sunlit nursery, with the baby cooing gently and Max lying close, the father understood that the healing process was ongoing. It was subtle, it was quiet, but it was real. It was grounded in trust, in love, and in the shared understanding of a bond deeper than words. And as the afternoon stretched lazily on, sunlight warming the room, the father whispered softly to both the baby and the dog. We're safe thanks to you, Max. We're learning together. A gentle sigh escaped Max, tail giving a slow, soft wag. The baby yawned, nestled against her father's chest. The healing, emotional, spiritual, and quiet, had begun in earnest. The sun was low now, soft golden light spilling through the nursery window and painting everything it touched in a warm, almost sacred glow. Shadows stretched across the floor, mingling with the quiet hum of the house. The baby slept peacefully in her father's arms, swaddled in the familiar pastel blanket that had become a symbol of protection and comfort. Max lay beside them, his body curved protectively around the crib, nose resting lightly on the rug. The father watched them both, heart full, mind quiet. The morning's tension had dissolved entirely, leaving behind something far deeper: understanding, respect, gratitude, and a bond he had only begun to comprehend. Max lifted his head slightly, eyes soft and attentive. Every subtle twitch of his ears, every measured flick of his tail, every gentle nudge of the blanket spoke a language the father now knew by heart. It was a language of love, of vigilance, of unwavering devotion. The father smiled, brushing his hand over Max's fur. "You've taught me so much today," he whispered. "About trust, about instincts, about love without words." Max leaned into the touch, tail giving a slow, deliberate wag. There was no need for praise, no need for acknowledgement. His quiet, protective presence had already said everything. The father shifted slightly, cradling the baby closer, feeling her soft warmth against his chest. She stirred, tiny fingers curling around his hand, and Max nudged the blanket gently over her, a subtle act of guardianship. The harmony in the room, the baby, the dog, and the father, was palpable. It was a silent promise of care, vigilance, and connection. As he watched, the father realized something profound. The bond between Max and his family was not merely about protection. It was spiritual. It was unspoken. It transcended the simple roles of pet and human. Max had shown him that love is instinctual, that devotion is both silent and powerful, that trust, once given and understood, can create a connection unbreakable. He whispered softly, almost reverently, "I see you, Max. I see the heart behind your eyes. I see the soul that watches over us." Max lifted his head, ears flicking, eyes reflecting a calm understanding. The father could feel it, the connection, subtle yet profound, bridging the instincts of a loyal dog with the gratitude and awareness of a human heart. The baby yawned, stretching tiny fingers toward Max. The dog shifted slightly, letting the baby's hand brush his fur. There was no tension, no hesitation, only acceptance, warmth, and quiet communion. The father's chest tightened with emotion. He felt the unity of the three of them in that simple moment, a harmony built from trust, instinct, and love. Time seemed to slow. The father breathed in the scents of the nursery, lavender, soft cotton, Max's fur, and felt a deep spiritual peace settle over him. This was more than a family moment. It was a lesson, a reminder of what it means to truly see, to truly understand, and to honor the silent bonds that protect and guide. He looked at Max once more, voice low and filled with awe. "You've done more than guard her today. You've taught me about patience, awareness, and the depth of love that doesn't need words. That's a bond one will carry forever." Max gave a soft, approving whine, laying his head back down, tail brushing the floor with measured calm. The father watched, feeling an unshakable certainty. This bond would never fade. It had been forged in trust, tested in tension, and strengthened through instinct and love. The baby shifted again, cooing softly. Max nudged the blanket gently, keeping her safe, while the father held both of them close. In the quiet glow of the late afternoon, he whispered one final time, "We are together. We are safe. We are family." And in that sunlit nursery, with warmth wrapping around them like a soft embrace, the father, the baby, and Max shared a moment beyond words. A moment of trust, a moment of love, a moment of connection that was eternal. Because some bonds, forged in instinct, nurtured in care, and strengthened by love, are unbreakable. And some guardians, silent, vigilant, and devoted, are more than pets. They are family.